Welcome to Blockbuster Buffs.
Blockbuster buddies.
Blockbuster boys.
Blockbuster beefcakes. We out here.
What's up, y'all?
The real name of the show is Blockbuster Buffs.
Yes.
Don't get it twisted.
Don't get it wrong, y'all. My name's Joe,
I'm Matt.
and we are your hosts on the show.
We like movies. This is a movie show.
This season's theme is family. The Fast and Furious family, to be exact. As we go through the Fast and Furious films, we have different people coming along for the ride and joining the barbecue crew.
That's right.
If you make it to the barbecue, you're part of the family. And if you're part of the family, you're probably in other movies. And if you're in other movies, we're watching those movies too.
Yeah, we'll be going through a couple fast flicks, but mostly we're going to be looking at what the family's doing outside of the barbecue, outside of the Fast and Furious crew.
Today's episode is featuring Jordana Brewster. Brewster?
Yep, the love interest of
Yeah.
Brian. Sister
Mia.
of Dom, Mia. Jordana Brewster. She's been in so many movies, such as Fast and The Fast and the Furious, Fast and Furious, Fast 5, Fast 6, Fast 7?
Probably.
Yeah.
Gotta be.
Fate of the Furious,
Okay, we get it.
F9,
What else has she been in,
Fast
Matt?
X,
All right.
Home Sweet Hell, and The Faculty are the only two movies that I know of that she's been in.
Yeah, before we figured it out, I didn't know her from anything else. So today's episode is going to be on The Faculty.
The Faculty. Woo! Yeah, because The Faculty is the only other... Like, Home Sweet Hell, I hear, was terrible. And
Sounds terrible.
I had never seen The Faculty, but I do remember when I was very young and it came out. My brother liked it. So... That's what
It's got to be good.
When I saw she was in it, I was like, "Oh, okay, my brother likes that movie."
If our teenage brothers liked things when we were young, it got embedded into our brain as being good.
Obviously, yeah, that's how that works. That's how it works. Oh, now I'm stealing things from the Flophouse podcast. Sorry, Elliot Kalin. You're just gonna have to deal with it, I guess. So The Faculty came out in 1998.
Wow.
This late 90s was a beautiful period in cinema. Like, seriously, like The Matrix came out like the next year. You got The Gladiator, you got all
Saving Private Ryan.
like so many good movies came out like right at the cusp, like right before 9/11 and like early 2000s. Like, these movies came out that were really good, and The Faculty is no different. Right on that level.
For
with
sure.
Saving Private Ryan.
Yes.
It goes like
Masterpiece.
Saving Private Ryan, The Matrix, The Faculty,
Shrek.
Shrek.
Lord of the Rings. So
Yeah.
give us a summary on The Faculty, Matt. What's going on?
Well, Joe, did you go to school?
Yes, for a little while.
Did you ever go to high school?
I did go to high school.
Were there like cool cliques in high school?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and different like, real scene, like different scenes and stuff.
Yep.
And were there like really cool teachers and stuff?
There were some cool teachers.
Were there some like bummer teachers?
Yeah. Definitely some bummer teachers.
So what if those bummer teachers?
Those who will not be named.
What if those ones, the bummer teachers, the teachers you didn't care for so much, what if they got, I don't know, like infested by some sort of parasitic alien and then, try to take over the school and maybe the world?
Terrifying and
Yeah.
definitely straight to the chopping block.
Obviously, as a big problem, you're going to need to kill those teachers for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, to start, you're going to want to assemble what?
6 to 7 teenage kids that have never done anything together ever.
That's what I would do. Personally, I believe we call it a ragtag crew. A ragtag crew of ne'er-do-wells. As Gary Goldman says, how often do, well, ne'er. So The Faculty is, it's a movie about a high school, and an alien parasite starts taking over the faculty. And then that alien parasite is going to take over the town, and then eventually it's going to take over the world. And so we open in media res. No, we don't. we open on a meeting that the faculty is having about, it's very important in any school movie. You have the subtext of like, hey, okay, by the way, schools are underfunded. So that's what they're talking about the meeting. They're like, man, this school is underfunded. We're gonna give money to football, but we're gonna take money from the arts. Real shame. Even though football is the one that brings in the money, so that's kind of part of it. They do make a point that it's a football town, which is kind of important to the plot, but not so much. And then we get these like really cool '90s introductions to each of the characters.
Wait, you gotta say who gets murdered.
Well,
in that first scene.
Oh, that's a good point. So, Principal Drake is giving this meeting. No, this doesn't happen right away, Joe.
It doesn't. This isn't the first scene.
No, the first scene is the football is them. No, I'm telling you, the first scene is the faculty having a meeting about why the football team gets money and the other departments don't. Oh no, the first scene is just kind of like an overview of the school. I'm so sorry, guys. This is incredibly unprofessional.
Isn't it the coach? It's the first little football practice, and the coach. It's the coach yelling.
Oh, okay.
It's the coach yelling ferociously.
I thought that was kind of part of like a whole overview of the school. Like I think they show the drama department and a couple things. It's during like the no, it's just
nope.
Oh gosh, I watched this like a week and a half ago.
No,
I took a lot of notes, but
the opening scene is the football practice.
Oh really?
Yeah, and
so the coach is just yelling stuff.
Yeah, the coach is yelling stuff, and he's yelling at all the kids. The main quarterback,
Stan,
is like.
He throws a bad pass, right?
Something like that.
And then the coach is like, keep that shit out of here.
Yeah, coach is just cussing up a storm. Stan walks off, and with his buddy kind of keeps him from going to have a confrontation with the coach. And then it goes to the meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Joe.
Yes.
Thank you for putting us back on track. So we have the meeting. Principal Drake is then after the meeting in the school. After the football practice, the football coach is there. He's like picking up some cones or something like that, maybe some cups. And he looks up and he's like, "What?" And he's talking to someone, but you don't see what. And it fades to black. And then we go into this meeting. And after the meeting, Principal Drake is in her office. She's like, just finishing up some stuff before she goes. It's pretty late at night. And the football coach attacks her. Stabs her with a pencil. Well, first he like tries to be real creepy and flirt with her and try to be like, let's hook up. And she's like, you're drunk, go home. It's kind of weird to assume that a teacher is drunk at school. But maybe that's his reputation. I'm not really sure. But yeah, so he like stabs her with a pencil, and then she's like running away from him and having a hard time with that. And she sees one of the drama teachers outside, and she's like, help, help. But the door is locked with a chain. I'm assuming that the football coach did this. And then as she gets the key from her office, she runs back, and she unlocks the chain. And then as she gets outside, they're like trying to bar the football coach from getting out. And then she's stabbed by the drama teacher, who's also been assimilated. Ah! It's the next day at school. And we get introduced to all of our leading ragtag crew. First, we have leading man. He does not get a weird little title card, which is odd to me. And then we have Casey. And so Frodo is a dork.
Elijah Wood
is Casey, and he's a dork, and he gets off the bus, and some dudes like pick on him. He gets punched, and then he apologizes for getting punched. And then he gets his balls rammed into the flagpole. And then the movie pauses for a second, puts up like a red kind of gothic font that says Casey. Pauses for like 4 seconds and then moves on. And then, boom, goth girl walks by and is like, screw you, Casey. And then she gets a pause. Stokey. This is the goth girl.
Stokely.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, there's an L in there.
Who's to say?
And then she not a note.
And then she walks by. She walks by our heroine, Jordana Brewster. She is the reason why we're watching this movie, and she is
Delilah.
boom, Delilah. She is informing her clique what they should wear and how they should do their hair because she's the worst. She also happens to be the head of the school newspaper, dating the football star, and yeah, it's a whole thing.
And the captain of the cheer squad.
Oh, and she's the
Don't
captain of the
forget
cheer.
that.
I think we get into that later. But yeah, and so Stan walks by. He's the football guy we've seen earlier, and he is kind of flirting with Jordana Brewster. He's basically coded at this point as football douche. He comes around though. You like him a little bit more. A leading man is the name I have for this guy. But his name is actually Zeke. He's the only hero. He's kind of the main hero of the movie, except for maybe Stan. And he doesn't get a title card. It's kind of weird. But yeah, he's selling drugs in the bathroom. He's selling fake IDs in the bathroom. He's a super senior.
I'm pretty sure he gets a title card in the bathroom when he's selling drugs.
I paused and rewound, and I was like, "This is the leading man. Where is the title card?" And I did not find it.
Wow. Weird.
Yeah, so he's out here. He's selling drugs. He's a super senior, so this is his second senior year, and he's also selling fake IDs. The drugs are in these little pens. You unscrew the back of a pen, he fills it with the little drug, and then we'll find out what that is later. But it's really interesting. And then we go to the teacher's lounge, smash cut teacher's lounge. Selma Hayek is there. I just bring her up because it's Selma Hayek. Not important. She has a cold. Basically, the school is broke as hell. And then Zeke is in a class. It's like a English class. They're talking about some English guy, some book. And Zeke actually answers the question very profoundly and like a real sexy man teen.
Literally.
Yeah, he's smart, clearly. Yeah. I think he maybe got himself held back because he was focused too much on making drugs. And he has this gorgeous English teacher. She's played by Famke Janssen, and she's very timid and kind of like shy. And so this is all part of the setup of the school. Stan tells Jordana Brewster that he's quitting football. She's a real B-word about it, or a Delilah, as I like to call it. It says the immortal line, captains of the cheerleading squad date star quarterbacks, not brainiacs. Come on, Jordana. What are we doing? So, and then so we're getting like little facades of all these characters. And so then it cuts to Stokely, outside, and she is being nice to the new girl, Mary Beth, who got a title card earlier, she's super nice and friendly to everybody, and she just seems like a real sweetheart. She is, she's beautiful, she has a southern accent, she's from Atlanta, and she is being real nice to Stokely, just trying to make a friend, as far as we can tell. And Jordana Brewster comes up and is like, whatever, lesbo. she like calls Stokely a lesbian and makes fun of her and then walks away, basically is what happens. And then we see Frodo eating alone on the bleachers. What's his name? Elijah Wood? Yeah, Frodo.
Yep.
He's out there because obviously he's eating alone on the bleachers. And then he's walking back to class. He gets picked on by the coach, who is maybe some sort of alien at this point. And he's basically asking like, "Hey, Frodo, why don't you try out for the football team?" And Frodo says, "I don't think a person should run unless he's being chased." Frodo's real name is Casey in the movie. So yeah, he's like, "I don't think a person should run unless he's being chased," which comes into play later. And at this point, he finds a worm thing out on the football field. It's like very dehydrated and kind of like dying. And he brings it to his science class, which is very important. So he brings it to his science class, and John Daly from The Daily Show is his science teacher with a goatee. And I didn't even notice it until the credits.
Yeah, I
his
didn't
science
realize
teacher
that.
with a goatee with a like fish tank in his class.
Yeah.
This is John Daly from
What?
The Daily Show. Yeah, it's absurd.
Did not know that.
Yeah, like it's just
Wow.
it's
It's kind of an all-star cast.
it's really an insane cast.
Yeah.
Like, it's not John Daly. Sorry, John Stewart. That's not. I was like, I gotta look this up. What am I
Okay.
saying?
I was confused.
Yeah, no. John Daly is someone entirely different, but it's Jon Stewart. And you're
Oh,
like,
yeah, okay.
what the heck are you doing? I did not recognize him. He looked entirely different in 1998 or
Yeah,
whatever this
weird.
movie
It
was.
was like 24 years ago.
Yeah. So Frodo brings in the worm to Jon Stewart and is like, "Hey, look, I found this weird worm." And he puts it under a microscope and drips a little bit of water on it, and it like kind of animates a little bit and like moves. And so they put it in a fish tank, and it like grows these tentacles. And Stokely's really nice to it, and like it like connects with her hands through the glass. It's kind of cool. It's a weird looking cool monster thing, and they're like, oh, maybe it's a new species. I think the science teachers should be way more skeptical of this, but
Oh,
yeah.
and don't forget that it replicates itself.
Oh yeah, immediately.
Yeah.
They drop it in the water, and it just like splits into two and replicates itself.
And the science teacher has the bright idea to stick his hand in there. I mean, he gloves up, sure, but he still sticks his hand in there to try and like grab it. Like, dude, what are you thinking?
And spoiler alert, it bites him. And it's got like a gross, scary mouth. Okay, so this is our cast of characters. You know, we got Delilah, who's a like star cheerleader. We got Stokely, who's kind of like the burnout scrub. We got Casey, who's like the nerd. Mary Beth, who's like the sweet out of towner, fish out of water dude. We have Zeke, who's the really smart drug dealer who doesn't get good grades. And we have Stan, who's a star footballer who also wants to become a dork now. And they are just, this is the setup. This is where we're at. Frodo is on the, he writes for the school newspaper because of course he does. Like, obviously he writes for the school newspaper. So he and Jordana Brewster start looking for a story, and they break into the teacher's lounge, and he's like, hey, maybe you should talk about how this teacher's an alcoholic. And she's like, I broke that last year, and no one cares. And so they're trying to find, he's like, oh, well, maybe there's this new species I found. And she's like, whatever, nerd. And then the teachers are unlocking the door, and they hide in a closet. And it is the drama teacher and the football coach, the two that we know have been somewhat. They're not acting normal. When we saw the football coach when Casey was eating lunch on the bleachers, he was being really nice, and the drama teacher and him also killed Principal Drake. And oddly enough, they've been drinking a lot of water all day. What do we know about this new species again?
Survives on water.
It replicates in water. It's very interesting. And so our wonderful Selma Hayek comes in sick in the teacher's lounge while they're having the drama teacher and the football coach are having like a meeting about how to assimilate the rest of the town, basically. And they kill Selma Hayek and spit a worm in her ear, which are, Casey and Delilah don't see it, but they do see her get like beat up and probably killed, and they just like run out and call the cops.
Whoa.
Whoa.
You're missing what else is in the closet with them when they step back.
Oh my gosh. All right, so there's a scene I forgot to mention. It's very important. It's not important, and we could totally skip it, but it is pretty gross and weird.
Yeah.
So Stan, earlier when we're getting introduced to all these characters, Stan is at football practice, and he goes into the shower, and he's like taking a shower, and behind him is like this old teacher shows up and just starts walking into the shower. Like, clearly she's totally naked. No, she's not naked.
No.
He's naked.
Yep.
And she's just like rambling nonsense, talking about how like they're gonna take over the world. They're like here to stay. I know what their plan is. She's trying to get water in her is the real thing that she's trying to do. But he's like, oh, what are you doing? And he like touches her. He's like kind of pushes her away because she's like getting really close to him while he's naked, and her like skin on her face falls off. And so flash forward to when Delilah and Casey are in the closet. There's a body, and it's her body, like with the disfigured face, and it's crazy and gross.
Woo!
Yeah. Maybe this one. So funny. Gross bodies. Yeah, so they jet out of the closet, and they call the police. They're like, they killed this teacher, they killed this other teacher, they hid her in the closet. and the police come with basically just with Casey and his dad, who's the bad guy in Happy Gilmore. So yeah, Casey and the bad guy in Happy Gilmore show up. It's a whole thing, and the cops show up, and they're like, "Oh, this body that was in the closet is actually just a mannequin that's here." And Selma Hayek greets the cops when they show up, so she's clearly not dead, and she's totally fine. And then the cops go in to see Principal Drake, who's alive, even though we saw her dead.
Get stabbed with scissors.
Oh my gosh. And
she's standing there like normal.
Yeah, Casey doesn't know that she was killed, but we do as the audience. She's standing there like normal, and there's a weird scuffle in her office, and then the cop comes out and is like, everything's fine. Really troubling. Really quite troubling.
Casey knows it's not.
So yeah, Casey goes home with his parents. Claiming like, all right, well, obviously this kid, adults said he was wrong, so he has delusions and he's crazy and he's probably doing drugs. And his parents immediately, which is kind of it's weird to me, they immediately think he has a serious problem, he is probably doing drugs, and maybe we should take him to the doctor. When it's like, is that more believable than maybe he lied about something? Maybe he lied about his teachers being evil. Like, that doesn't seem... It's pretty weird to me that they took it so seriously. And so, yeah, the worms, they require a huge amount of water. And... where are we at here?
Casey's at his house, and he tries to... his parents ground him. And they're like, you're not doing anything or going anywhere, and you're seeing a doctor tomorrow. And he's like, I'm not lying. Believe me. And he tries to break out of the house. He tries to climb out, and he has like a little...
yeah.
We don't know if it's a hallucination or not, but the football coach and the drama coach and this is the principal?
Yeah.
Yeah, are all outside the house. And he like falls down his roof, lands, and they're about to like come over and eat his brains when his dad comes out and grabs him, tells him to get inside, and he looks back and they're all gone. He's like, what the heck?
Yeah, and then it's just the next day at school, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, it's just the next day at school, and I think we see Zeke flirting with Mary Beth. They're kind of getting along, and they overhear Casey and Jordana Brewster, Delilah, fighting about what happened, and they start to they go into the classroom to look for the worm because they're like, hey, maybe something's going on with this worm. I'm not sure, and it's gone. And so he's talking about it. He's like, they require water, and it's a real problem. And I think I got out of step. I did. Zeke and Mary Beth flirt, and the faculty starts just calling students. So before they're in there, they haven't figured out that maybe it is tied to the worm. Casey and Delilah are trying to figure out what's going on, though, because they realize something's weird. Delilah just kept it secret from their parents so she didn't get in trouble. And then they just keep calling students to the nurse, Selma Hayek, and we know as the audience, they're just commuting students. And so the students start all acting weird. A couple that was like really contentious, they start like being really, buddy, and they're fine. They're not fighting anymore. They're just kind of like holding hands and, making out and stuff. And so that's kind of odd. And then as we see this as Zeke and Mary Beth are flirting and walking through the courtyard, that all these students are being very well behaved and very like in sync with one another. And then that 70s rapist dude from that 70s show, what's his name?
What?
The like guy from that 70s show. He is he's a Scientologist. I just have him in my notes as that 70s rapist because I figured everyone would know.
Who are you talking about?
Danny Masterson. He's Stephen Hyde in that 70s show. This guy. You know this guy. He's in the movie. He's in the show The Ranch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I recognize him. Is he in the movie?
Yeah, he comes up to Zeke randomly, and he's like, "Hey Zeke, you got any more drugs?" And he like tries to buy them from him, and it's weird. Like he's
Okay.
clearly
Yeah,
super
yeah,
weird
yeah, yeah,
about
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
Danny
I,
Masterson.
yes, that registered when I was watching it. That like I recognized him, but I definitely like did not spend any time trying to make a connection.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised that no one else just refers to him as that '70s rapist. But yeah, like he's in jail for like 38
Oh,
years now.
oh, geez, yeah, no, wow, did not know that one.
Yeah,
I
trigger
do
warning.
now.
This guy.
Yeah,
So
yikes.
he, but very clumsily, asks Zeke, like, "You got any drugs?" He's like, "Yeah." He hands him a couple pens, and they buy from him. And then he's like, "Is that all you have?" And he's like, "Right now, yeah." And then just kind of tells him to move along. And then he offers some drugs to Mary Beth, and she's like, "Oh, I'm allergic to everything. I'm allergic to aspirin. I can't take any." Um, it's a whole thing. So they're flirting. They start kissing a little bit.
They head to a little pharmacy, like little drug room. I don't know, like
Like
the
I think
science
yeah,
lab.
chemistry
Yeah,
lab, and
chemistry
he's
lab
like
thing.
stealing stuff
Yeah,
to make his little drugs, and
and
she's
it's
like,
right next to the science class where Casey and Delilah are.
yeah, and they're trying to find this worm, and they overhear them talking about aliens that are trying to assimilate the world, and Zeke comes in and makes fun of Casey a little bit, and they're like, where's the worm or whatever, and then Jon Stewart walks in,
Isn't
and
Stan in there too? Stan comes in at some point
I don't think he is. Maybe he is. He might be in there.
because he helps fight. He helps fight.
Oh yeah, he must be. The whole crew has assembled in
Yeah,
this science class. I think maybe Jordana Brewster picked up Stan along the way. But yeah, they're all in there. Zeke, Mary Beth, Stokely is in there. Um, she's the one who knows about Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which is clear. I mean, this is what this movie's based on. Um, but yeah, so they're all in there, and then Jon Stewart, the teacher, the science teacher, comes in and is like, "Oh yeah, I sent that worm off to the college like we talked about." And then he tries to assimilate Casey, I believe, and the like this crew gets in a fight with Jon Stewart, and they finally like Zeke cuts his arm off with a he breaks off the paper cutter like arm, and he like cuts his arm off, and these like red tentacles come out of it, which is the things that came out of the worm when it first was put in water, like came out, and these like red tentacles. So yeah, these like red tentacles come out of it, and he just like keeps cutting them up, and then like some of the worms fall out, and one of them gets on Jordana Brewster and Stokely, and they like try to fight it off. Um, but yeah, they eventually just like they're trying to kill him, and then I believe yeah, Zeke stabs him in the eye with one of his pens, and he's fine for like a second, and then he just like shrivels up and dies.
well, his face starts like bubbling over, like his
Yeah,
eye
it's
starts getting all white, frothy, bubbling, and then he falls over and yeah,
yeah.
shrivels up dead.
So they kill him with the drugs that Zeke makes, and then they just try to dip out of school. Like they're like, all right, this is real. That we found an alien. They take one of the worms with them that they find, and they're like, yeah, this is a problem. And so they try to get to Zeke's car, and I think Zeke gets beat up by Famke Janssen at this point, where she like tells him to stop selling drugs. That's his like super hot English teacher. And then they do make it to his car, kind of just by walking through, but they hear like voice like this. Basically, they do a good job, I think, at creating this feeling that the whole school, everyone is against them, and they do that by like you can just kind of hear mutterings of each of their names, and all of the students are being weird, and they're all looking at them, and they're all kind of like, Delilah, Zeke, like just you hear it, and it's not like artful or like crafty, but it is effective. Like it really does make you kind of feel like, all right, they should know what's going on, and yeah, they can tell that their school is different.
Yeah,
They make it to Zeke's car. They go to his drug lab, and he's like got a gun there, and he's clearly has very wealthy parents who are just out. So he's like a wealthy boy with wealthy stuff, and Mary Beth is like, oh, look at your like fancy drug lab, and she's just like so enamored with Zeke the whole time. It's kind of odd. Um, but she's like, oh, this is your big secret, caffeine pills. And so what he's just doing is he's distilling like coffee and caffeine pills and like basically just mostly caffeine. Like they're not intense drugs, which is maybe because he's pretty smart. Like I can't tell. Like it might just be like caffeine and other vitamins as far as I can tell. But like it's a really smart move, to be honest, to like sell a drug that if you got caught with a ton of it, you wouldn't get in trouble. I was proud of Zeke. Like this is part of the movie where I was like, this dude is freaking brilliant. Like he's distilling caffeine to a dose that makes you feel kind of stoned, which I've had that dose of caffeine. I won't get too far into it, but I drank a lot of Red Bulls in a very short amount of time, and yeah, you do feel like loopy and kind of high and like frisky and weird. And so you distill it to a dose that's like absurd, and then sell it as if it's like cocaine.
Yep.
But if you get caught with, I mean, 20,000 milligrams of caffeine, like you're not going to jail. Like you might, but not for long. Like you're fine, basically. Like you can sell caffeine. Like there's no rule against it. And so I was really impressed by it because you can achieve some of that. And I'd assume if you snort caffeine crystals, you probably feel pretty dope for a second.
Yeah.
And so
you're gonna feel good.
that's what he's doing. He's selling caffeine crystals in pens, like powdered caffeine.
Yep.
And so they're there. They're talking about the monsters. They're talking about the aliens. They're kind of piecing together the knowledge that they have, and they come to the conclusion that any one of them could be assimilated, and the only way to test it is to do drugs. And so they're like, all right, everyone is taking a hit of this caffeine stuff, right?
And they've figured out at this point that the caffeine is the reason that the drug killed the teacher.
Yeah.
Because it dries
it dehydrates you.
dehydrates it, and the parasites thrive on water, and
Which
so,
I'm skeptical of.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of. I thought that was a little bit reaching. Like I don't think it dehydrates you. It like makes you need to pee a lot, but it's not like it dries you out as if you like fell into a pile of salt or concrete or something. Like concrete will just dry out your entire body. Like if you fell into a pool of concrete, like you'll die quickly because it'll just suck all of the water out of you. It's pretty weird. But like I don't think caffeine works like that, but I give it a pass because the doses that he's dealing with are like
pretty high.
Like yeah,
potentially.
It's absurd.
Yeah.
It's an absurd dose of caffeine. So maybe it's just poisonous to the worms in general. Like I don't think it actually dries them out necessarily, but yeah, if they need a ton of water and they get a little bit less and they die, like that seems to be the way that's working. So anyway, he has everyone snort some. The last two, I mean, everyone's kind of a little bit like pumped and weird and loopy, but the last two are Mary Beth and Delilah, who don't want to snort it. And Mary Beth snorts it at the same time as Delilah, and Delilah instead just drops it and doesn't actually take it because she has been assimilated, which is bad. So yeah, she fights with them a little bit. She breaks through the door and leaves and gets into a car. And it's clearly like these worms, these body snatchers are like kind of like a hive mind. And so they go back, they gather all of this caffeine that they can into this like kind of like powder gun. And it's the night of the big football game. Everyone's coming to the football game, and that's why the school gives money to footballers and not other people. And so they're like, we're gonna find out who is the head, and they basically come up with the idea that so Zeke is smart enough that he looks at the worm and he's like, this is not a complete organism. It doesn't have the type of nervous system it needs to be plotting in the way that it is. And so clearly there's like an alpha that's controlling the others. And so you get basically the rule of every movie: cut the head off the snake, the body dies. So they're like, let's find the head of the snake,
Kill the queen bee.
we'll kill it, and then everything else will go away, and these people will turn back to normal. And so that's their plan. They go to the football game. They're looking for him. They're like trying to find the alpha, and they for a second think like, oh, maybe it's Principal Drake, and they see her chasing them, and they run, and they're at the football game, and then they run back to the school into the gym, and she comes in. They're like, they have a whole encounter with her, and she's like, you guys have to get out of here. And they're like, yeah, no, like take this drug. And she's like, I'm not doing that, obviously. And then, oh man, she tries to attack one of them, I believe. What happens?
Yeah, they get in a fight with her.
They get in a fight with her, and then let's see here. Oh yeah, and then when they get her like downed, basically like tie her up, and then Mary Beth takes. They have like this canister that they use to fill the pens, and she just dumps the entire thing on Principal Drake, and it's just like is crazy. Like she just like bubbles up and then like clinches together and dehydrates and dies, and like I don't know, she like shrivels up all the way. It's crazy, like it's insane. And you're like, man, Mary Beth, like you're an idiot. Like don't do that.
Why did you just waste all of your ammo?
Yeah, they're doing like insane doses when they all like take a hit. I'm like, I think they're doing like 400 milligrams of caffeine, which like if you do pre-workout, you know, like about 150 is plenty to get you pretty ramped up. And you double that, that's a lot. And then you snort it. Like, holy cow, this is insane. This is a huge amount of caffeine. And so she dumps the whole thing, wastes their whole stash. And then Stan's like, I'm going to go out and I'm going to find it. I think it's the coach. So he goes out and he's like, the game ends. I think maybe it gets rained out, but I don't think so. I think the game just ends. And he goes out there and he sees the coach. And this moment, I don't know, what'd you think of this? When he sees the coach, and the coach and the players are all just like standing there drinking up the rain, and they're like they have like these these tentacles coming out of like these little thin red tentacles coming out of their skin on their face and their hands, like absorbing the rain, and it was so disgusting.
Yeah.
Like, oh, so gross.
Yep.
And like, yeah, it's a cool scene, and it's like not terrible, but yeah. So then Stan comes back and he's like, you guys gotta let me. There's a crazy. It's him, and they don't let him in because they're like, hey, you know what? Snort this caffeine before you get in. And then he doesn't and dumps it out on the ground. And it's their last vial because they're dumb. They shouldn't have done that. So yeah, they waste their caffeine. Stan has been assimilated. Delilah has been assimilated. It's down to Stokely, Casey, Zeke, and
Mary Beth.
And so Zeke and Casey decide, all right, here's what we're going to do. Zeke's like, I got more drugs in my car. We could go get it, and that'll be all right. So it's like, first of all, why didn't you bring those with you? You guys were in your car earlier. But yeah, so he's like, I think I got some in my car. We could go get it. So Casey and him go out, and Casey acts kind of as bait. Delilah, he distracts the football team, and the football team is hunting Zeke and Casey. Basically, they catch him, and then Zeke's like, you got to be the bait, and so Casey distracts the football team and climbs into a bus, and then boom, Delilah shows up, and she tries to be hot enough to get Casey to assimilate. It does not work, but she does call the rest of her mates around, and the football team shows up, and they start like messing with the bus. He climbs out the roof. Everything's fine. Casey's on the run. No big deal. And then Zeke gets to his car, and Famke Janssen is there trying to assimilate Nate. By not Nate. Zeke. By being hot enough. That's really their play. It's just like, You're a teenage boy. I'm pretty hot. You want to join my crew? Like it's a little ridiculous. Um, but they each resist, and Zeke gets in the car, and Famke Janssen gets in the car, and then he runs into the side of a bus, and she's not strapped in, and he is, and she like flies out and hits the bus, and the bus explodes, and he grabs the drugs from his uh
From
glove
the
compartment, I think, or
like
maybe
their
the floor
floor,
of the
yeah,
car.
yeah. They're like rolling around on the floor.
And then this moment's crazy because he gets out of the car and Famke Janssen's head is on like a squid body because her head came off and her body's like kind of like teetering around, and then her head like kind of like squids like octopuses over to her body and like gets put back on, and he just dips.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Stokely and Mary Beth are alone, and they've been real friendly to each other. And she's asking her about the end of Invasion of the Body Snatchers and about how it works out. And she's like, well, the Body Snatchers win, I think she says.
Hmm.
Yeah, and she's like, yeah, they take over everything. And she's like, yeah, well, maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's right. Like, maybe we should become elevated into this, like, supreme, this clearly better species. And Stokely's like, no. And then she's like, your entertainment got it right. We're going to win. And she's like, we're going to win. And so Stokely backs up, and Mary Beth turns into a giant monster. And Stokely runs away, and she's running. And then she's running through the pool area. She's running along the side. And then Mary Beth jumps into the pool, and she becomes this giant, crazy monster thing.
Casey's with Stokely at this point, too.
Yeah, Casey does make it back. So, no, he comes in after.
Okay.
So, like, Mary Beth she's in the water, and she, like, one of her tentacles grabs and throws Stokely, and then, Frodo runs in, and then, like, is like, what's going on? She's like, oh, Mary Beth's the bad guy. And then there's, like, kind of a, like, they leave, they go into a locker room, and then Mary Beth turns back into Mary Beth, and she's just, like, naked, swimming, and like gets out of the water naked and then goes into the locker room. And this scene is pretty cool too because it's like she is like Frodo's like, what's going on? And Stokely's like, I don't know, because like Stokely's like, I mean, it's Mary Beth's the bad guy. It's her. And Frodo's like, maybe it's you. Like,
right.
I'm not sure
right.
what's going on. And then Stokely like hits him because when she got hit by that tentacle, she got assimilated by Mary Beth, and so he locks Stokely into like a gym locker basically, not like a gym locker like a small one, but like a cage that houses equipment, and so then it's just hit Frodo and Mary Beth, like kind of moving around the locker room, and she's like talking to him and just like trying to be sexy, all naked and stuff, and he's like just trying to hide from her basically. And Zeke shows up at this point, and Frodo's like, it's her, but then she continues to just try to like kind of be temptress with both of them, and then finally when it's clear it's not gonna work, she just goes full monster. And one thing that was kind of odd about this scene is she's like in the form of a human, but the shadows are the form of this like tentacle alien monster, which I thought was an interesting choice. I didn't dislike it, but it was clearly like not normal. Yeah, so then, Frodo, I think Zeke gets hit on the head or something like that.
Yeah,
what was it, Zeke?
He gets like tossed over the lockers and
Okay.
just gets like knocked out.
So Frodo like bounds out of the locker room into the gymnasium behind the bleachers, and Mary Beth, now as alien queen,
Octopus thing.
yeah, like monster, is the gross. I mean, man-made horrors beyond all comprehension. This thing is, it's disgusting, and he he goes behind the bleachers, and this monster thing is like talking to him, but also is still a monster, but sounds like Mary Beth. It's kind of odd. And then he like pushes a button, and then runs, and the monster starts chasing him underneath the bleachers as the bleachers start closing in one by one. And he makes it out, but then this gross like monster worm mouth like shoots him in the face.
The monster gets stuck in the last row of bleachers.
Oh yeah, that's key.
Yep.
Gets stuck, so he's able to like kind of step back, and he has one of the pens that he got from Zeke, that Zeke got from the car, and it like he's about to do it, but then he gets shot in the face with these like barbs that are these worms, and it's really gross. And then he like stabs her in the eye with 3 pens, and it dries out the whole thing, and then the worms like push out of his face, and like just man, it's disgusting. Like it's like the grossest effect I've ever seen. And then everyone's fine, and yeah, I mean Zeke and Stokely get to kiss and stuff, and I think Casey ends up with
Delilah.
With Delilah.
Oh, you better believe he
Oh,
does.
no. It's not Zeke. Stan and Stokely.
Yes.
They get back together.
Yeah. Stokely realizes she's actually into men.
Yep, and Jordana Brewster. I mean, I don't think she was ever really a lesbian. That's what she said.
That's kind of the shtick.
But yeah, so and then it's all fine, and you know, Casey gets to be the hero that he always wanted to be, and he gets to be with the cheerleader, and he's getting interviewed all the time, and
in a world where Elijah Wood can be with Jordana Brewster.
Yeah, and she is looking as good as better than she's ever looked, frankly. Like,
really?
No.
Disagree.
Fast 1 probably best.
She definitely looks better.
She looks a little bit too young in this one.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's looking great still though. And it's awesome. And that's the end of the movie.
Yep.
And I don't know how to make these summaries shorter, but we'll figure it out.
We'll try.
We'll do our best. But it's hard, man. These movies
is.
are fun and they're interesting, and there's a lot going on, and
there's just a lot of important stuff.
Yeah, if I get to the end and it's like, all right, well, this thing happens, and then all of a sudden it's like, all right, I gotta backtrack and tell you about what happened before to set up this thing.
Yep.
It's a whole mess.
It is a whole mess.
You got anything to add?
No, that was great.
All right.
Yeah. Ready? For Dunk or Defend?
Dunk or Defend. This is where we talk about the movie, and Joe and I each of us will decide. We don't know what the other one's going to say. If we would like to defend this movie on its merits or dunk on it because it's ridiculous. So, you want to call it?
Yep. 3, 2, 1. Dunk.
All right. Yep.
Dunk.
It's got to be dunk. I want to preface. Man, you go first.
All right. So I'm dunking on this for multiple reasons. My primary reason for dunking on it, though, is for being self-aware, for having Stokely be so knowledgeable about the invasion of the Mind Snatchers or whatever it is, and being like kind of an important subplot of the story, like her and Casey talking about the book and everything.
Yeah,
is like, for as self-aware as it was, it took itself too seriously. Mm-hmm. Like, it couldn't figure out whether it was a spoof or trying to be a serious movie, and so it like towed the line too much, and it was just like it couldn't figure out what it was trying to do. Yeah.
Anything else?
I think they were trying to do like some social commentary and stuff too, with like the football team is the only thing that's important in this town. Like, why don't we have funding for anything else? Like, they were trying to make some social commentary with that stuff, but like they only barely touched on it at the beginning of the movie, and then never like brought any of it back up again. Really?
Yeah.
So
like, what if the burnout kid was actually smart? Yeah. Okay, movie.
Yeah, right. Right, yeah. It was just like very cliched. Yeah, and like super cliched with just the characters themselves, like total caricatures of the time period of what they might be like. Like, Casey was ridiculously bullied. Like, he was bullied harder than I can, like, literally getting picked up by 4 guys and getting his nuts squished against a light post or whatever. Just like, that is, where are the teachers? Like, where is anyone that's like gonna have like this is outside the front of the school. Someone should have an eye on this. Like, what?
This is next level bullying.
Yeah, like
if you guys have ever been bullied this way, let us know
yeah,
because
seriously,
this is absurd.
please, I'll come have coffee with you and like try and talk you through it. Like that is a ridiculous amount of bullying.
Yeah, like he's not just like that's fine. Like
Yeah.
he's got serious psychological problems
For
for
sure.
a long time.
Yes.
Unless he's, and even if he like is able to cope with it well, like he's got problems.
Yeah.
Like he's oh man, it's
Yeah.
a mess.
And they make it seem like so normal too. Like
Yeah.
they make it like he's able to roll with it fairly easily.
Yeah.
Like, what?
So like, dude, you're growing up to be the Unabomber. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Oh,
Just brutal.
totally fair.
And I mean, other than that, it was like a fun, silly horror to kind of kick off spooky season, but it was just pretty low quality in general, I'd say.
Yeah, did you
Too
enjoy
cliche.
it, or was it kind of difficult to watch?
It wasn't difficult to watch,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, it was fun for its own sake,
Okay.
but it wasn't like defense worthy.
Yeah. I also decided to dunk on this flick, and I liked it a lot more than you did. It seems like I really enjoyed it. I gotta start with the dunks though.
Okay.
Dunks. I mean, the girl who shows up out of nowhere ends up being the like main bad, which is like okay, that kind of tracks, but that seems a little bit like obvious, which is odd. And then when people get assimilated, they act like they're assimilated. They act weird and they act different. They act counter to their character. And so it's really strange that like when super Delilah, you know what I mean. When super B word Delilah gets assimilated, she's just kind of still this like she's like still the same way. She's still kind of acting the same way. She's still very emotional, but like somehow she is, doing her thing. And then also like they do the drug at the same time, and like Mary Beth, because she's the queen bee, is able to like she closes her nostrils and like that's what happened in that scene when they're in Zeke's lab and they all like take drugs, and then Delilah can't do it, but Mary Beth does it, and she even acts like pretends loopy, but she's really like the main baddie. Like her body is built different. She like closes her nostrils so that way it doesn't actually like suck in, and then reduces the pen. But like just this kind of like it felt like an afterthought to me. Frodo's parents really bummed me out. I was just like, that's not. I mean, kids are just weird. So like, when your parent and your kids are just like being weird, you're not like immediate like you need to go see a doctor. It's like, are you alright? Like even if you have a good relationship, you kind of know your kids well. Like, you just kind of like, are you okay? You give it a couple days, see if they're like being, if they're hallucinating, unless they're like really going crazy. Like you're gonna give it some time, and so that was bothersome, and it was just really like a lot of dumb stuff in a row. That was kind of frustrating. The fact that the teacher like touches the monster. The fact that he's like, this must be a new species. I'm like, you found a worm that was dead in your yard. Like you would be really careful about that.
Yeah.
Like you're a science teacher. Like, oh man. Yeah, so that was frustrating. Yeah, and everyone was a character.
Mm-hmm.
That was the big thing. But the points I'll give, number one, this movie was, I thought it was very fun. I also thought, like, I really enjoyed, much like Pitch Black, I forgot that there was a time in like cinema history where you would just start a movie and then stuff would happen in a row, and then you would just like deal with that stuff. And it wasn't, what I'm trying to say is that all movies now start with like, I'm Tyler Caraway, and I'm here at this school, and this is this person, and this is this person, and this is where I'm from, and this is what I think, and this is how I feel, and my parents don't like me that much. Like all these movies, like you look at Easy A, you look at I like that movie too, but it's just like it was really refreshing, much like Pitch Black, to have a movie that just starts. There's no exposition, there's no narration. There's like a little, like scene setting up like who these characters are, and even like the little pause and title card, and it's a little bit clunky, but it was really nice. Like it was refreshing to me to watch a movie that wasn't like Sonic the Hedgehog is paused and like, I bet you're wondering how I got here. Like it's just like stuff starts and then things are happening.
Yeah.
And it's rare. Like I didn't realize how rare it was until we watched two 90s movies in a row. But yeah, it's even Dungeons and Dragons, like
Yeah.
it's
Total
there's a lot
exposition.
of exposition.
Yeah.
Some parts of that makes it's kind of a cheat code. It makes the movies easier to watch, easier to enjoy, and easier to write. But
It's almost forgivable in Dungeons and Dragons because it's what you do in the game.
right.
Like it's just playing off that trope. But in general, yeah, I'd agree. It can be overdone with too much exposition.
Yeah,
It's a
so
good point.
there's the little bit of defense for Faculty. I loved it. I think you should watch it. I mean it's a movie I genuinely like, but it's also dumb and not that good. Like so I had to dunk on it. So I would recommend you watch it. Joe, what do you think?
Take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it.
I could go the rest of my life without ever watching it again.
I will definitely watch it again.
Like I said, it was a fun way to kick off spooky season with a bit of a horror thriller.
Fair.
But yeah.
What's our next segment?
Quarter mile time.
Quarter mile time.
Woo!
You want to explain it?
Sure. So, if you've been following along so far this season, you'd know that our ranking system is based off the quarter mile speed, not your typical 0 to 10 ranking. This is a 10 to 20 second ranking. So, 10 seconds is a very good quarter mile time, specifically for the Fast and Furious universe. In these days,
It's good, not great.
it's good, not great. Cars can definitely do better than a 10-second quarter mile.
Yeah.
But we're considering 10 seconds to be the best of the best and 20 seconds to be trash.
Yeah, because that's our season. We're in the Fast and Furious family. We watch this movie because Jordana Brewster's in it. Mia, she's our girl. We want to see what she's doing outside of the franchise. So we're staying in that Fast and Furious lane. I just want to remind people because you talk about a movie for an hour,
No,
and
you're right.
they're like, "Don't forget, this is what we're doing."
Yep. No, it's a good reminder. I was just thinking of what my ranking is going to be and what
Ugh.
your ranking is going to be. Do you want to go first?
Not really, but I can. It's gonna be a 16. Like I said, I like this movie, but it doesn't. Like I think when I think about the quarter mile time, I think like, is it doing what it's trying to do, exactly as it's trying to do it? And I think in reality, like it's a rip off of another thing, and so it's automatically losing points for that. And then also, it's like it's very generic, and like it's well done generic, but it's still generic. And so, and it has too many plot holes and too many like inconsistencies with the narrative. And so while I very much enjoy it, I would maybe consider it to be like a good movie in terms of like it's fun to watch, it's fun to tease and make fun of. It's a little ridiculous, but it's not good on its own merits. It's good because I just like movies. And they've tried, and it's fun, and it's not boring. Like it's good because it's not boring, but it's as far as execution, it's a miss almost all the way around.
Yeah. I'm going to be even harder on it. I'm going to give it an 18.
Oof. So it's a bad.
It's an F- for me. And I definitely agree with your points. And on top of it being a ripoff, if you're going to be a ripoff, and you're going to be self-aware about it, then you have to be funny.
Yeah.
You can't be serious, or at least like that, uh, like straightforward and basically like copycatty. You have to be more funny and more like outlandish with being a spoof, basically. Like, I expect you to be a spoof if you're being self-aware about being a ripoff.
Yeah, I thought it was super funny, but they didn't intend it to be funny at all.
No, not a little bit.
I almost forgot
Yeah.
that they didn't try to make it funny.
Yeah, that's definitely took themselves seriously.
Yeah, that's fair.
And yeah, I mean, cliche, pretty straightforward, predictable stuff going on. Just meh.
Worst movie so far, guys.
Worst movie so far.
All right, well,
Will something top it?
you got anything else?
I still love Mia, no matter what. Jordana Brewster will be near and dear to me. So
That's fair.
she's what kept it from being a 20.
Fair. Yeah, no, for me it was Frodo. Frodo, and I think my favorite character is probably Zeke. Like, I think that
Zeke is a
his
character.
plan, like his whole deal was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's been Blockbuster Boys, Blockbuster Buffs. The reality of the show is Blockbuster Buffs. Me and
Blockbuster
Joe,
buffs.
we're buffs, and we're blockbusting. So please like our show, follow us on social media, and we're on the All Days Off network, so maybe listen to that too. But yeah, thanks for listening.
Have a good day or night.